Gotta go, see you later.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Fitzmaurice Community Services Fire Safety Training. I just want to ask that you please save all of your questions to the end in the chat and we'll address them after Leon Clapper is finished with his presentation. So Leon.
Okay, thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for what you do. It very takes special people like yourselves to do what you do every day. So thank you all for your services. So let's start with your basics. I mean, I'm sure you guys do your monthly drills and you log them and you have a regular place. I'm hoping that you all meet outside for your drills. And naturally, drills are very important. People think, we had one this month, we're good for a couple months. Well, you forget. Different people in at different shifts, it's all should be good. If you do have a fire and you are evacuating, there's a couple things I would like to hit that's a little different than you guys probably do. One would be everybody gets out. Naturally, you dial 911. If it's a smoke condition and you have the time and you reach over and say that closet's a bedroom and you're bringing one of your people out, or your residents, I guess I should say, out. If you have the time to grab a pillow and throw in front of that door, that would help us come in when the smoke gets thicker, if there's a possible fire, to know that room has been evacuated. If there's a room that doesn't have a pillow, we're gonna go there first. Now, there's no set rules in this in your facilities to do that, but this is what we've been teaching. And then we got farther along where we have door strips that we do in nursing homes. The pillows have worked very well for us for a long time. It's a little old school. When everybody goes outside, I'm eating the place, and I hope that before I would attempt to extinguish the fire, I would be dialing 911. Remember, the people, when you dial 911, they're going to ask you who you are, where you are, what type of facility, what the fire is, and they're going to ask you all this stuff, and you're going to be screaming at them on the phone. It doesn't help them when you do that. You need to be calm, cool, and collective when you're giving information, because the information you give to that dispatcher may not know who you are, don't know where you are, and until you can tell them everything, it doesn't know which fire company, which township, and unless you're actually hit 911 and it's registering perfectly. So that is very, very important to do on that. I gotta put my cheaters on here, I got some notes. So we went over the part where everybody's meeting in one place outside. Somebody has a register of knowing how many people, I'm hoping, are there. So when the first firefighter, which may not be a chief, it could be a captain, could be a lieutenant, that you could tell them, okay, all my people are out. And that's what I would hope that you guys do that. Other than that, if you have the chance and you get everybody out and it's a small fire and you can go and you can take a fire extinguisher and use it, the first thing you look straight on is you look at the extinguisher, the needle, which is normally a yellow color, the background is green, and both sides on either side are red. If that needle, when you're looking at it straight forward, is in the red, don't even try to spray it, because the extinguisher at that point is not charged. When you use a fire extinguisher, there's a couple rules about that. You pull the pin, you're going to reach down, you're going to pull the hose out. Then you're going to squeeze the handle. And if the fire is, say, that computer, you just don't stand here and go, shh. You do a sweeping motion, especially if it's a grease fire. And that'll allow you to better handle the fire. If you're nervous about doing that, my suggestion is don't do it. Because you could do more harm in spraying that. If you're really scared, you could push the fire maybe. And we don't want you to do that. The other thing is, once you use a fire extinguisher, we shouldn't be using it anymore. Each house probably has a different location. I know some of your facilities, I'm fortunate enough to work in some of them. Each one's a little different. So you can't have just one plan for, I'll say, Stroudsburg. And that same plan moves to the township. And I think you all know that. If not, it's very important to know that. The other couple of things I have there is when you're there, make sure when you're doing your evacuations, you get everybody out quickly without doing much harm. Sometimes if there's a bigger person and they're a needy person, and I don't mean to be rude about saying that, you may have to grab them, you may have to put a sheet down, and you may have to literally pull the sheet. It's part of life, you gotta do it. You gotta try, if it's a burning building, you have to try to get that person out. Couple of the other things I have down, all staff, they know where everything is, they're calling 911. Your smoking areas, I have a couple things about that to say. I know that some of the facilities I go in, you have your little cigarette butt containers outside. When you're doing that, I'm a firm believer if you have that designated smoking area, you should have fire protection there too. I don't know if you do, I'm not here to write your new policy, but if there's gonna be a fire, it's gonna probably be in that smoking barrel, which I've seen them get pretty big at times, because it's no more than plastic. It actually starts to look like a big candle going up in the air. If we get a CO alarm, and we're doing it, and it's actually a CO, we don't know if it is or not. Once you evacuate, it's very important to close the building for us. I can't come in if the CO alarm's ringing and you go out and you leave every door and window open. It makes it difficult for us as firefighters to know where the CO problem came from. So it's important. Same thing exiting the fire. As you can close as many doors as you can possibly close, you are slowing the draft, which will slow the fire down also there. Stovetop fires. There's a couple ways to extinguish stovetop fires. If it's in a pan and it's not too big, there's just a simple lid over the top of it. They do have some new blankets that are out. I don't know if you guys have seen them yet or not. We have them for car fires, or now making them to lay over stoves. To never take a pail of water and throw on a stove fire. We could have a couple things happen. One, it's electric, that could be create a problem. Two, if it's any kind of oils, bacon grease, anything like that, when you throw the water on there, what's gonna happen is everything's gonna spread out and we're gonna have more fire. And now we went from a little fire that was big to maybe a whole room of content at that point. I have to apologize, I had a thing set up, but I have it a little different tonight. When and if you guys go to use a fire extinguisher, very important, we're going into a fire, you're gonna use this. You don't go into a fire, spray the extinguisher, and then do this. Because you can't see. If that fire restarts, you want to be facing it, and you want to be able to spray it again and back up in a certain area and keep watching. When your fire extinguisher gets just about to the end, it's time that you keep walking backwards and exit the building and go back out and meet with your people. Your extinguisher should be checked once a year. I went over the green means go. If it's in red, we're not using it. Do you have any questions that we can start talking about back and forth that I may have missed on some of the basics?
Can I throw in a couple for some of the stuff that we talked about? So Leon mentioned about the CO, so the carbon monoxide detectors. Just so you guys know, all our houses have monitor alarm systems. Every system monitors carbon monoxide and smoke and fire. A lot of the alarms sound the same. If it goes off, I get a call that it's carbon monoxide. You might know it's just an alarm going off. So at any rate, when an alarm goes off, what do?
Evacuate the building, get to your staging area, and to your best you can, without jeopardizing, is close everything up tight. That way, when we get there, we can put our CO monitor will start at the door, and my guys will have air packs on. I don't know how many parts per million will be there. If it's going off, it's probably going off at 35 parts per million. We're pretty much okay there yet, but I went into some facilities where we're up 500, 600. We're not okay there. That's why we wear breathing air when we're in there, and I'm sure nobody wants to go into a chamber. And that would be what would happen with too much CO.
And carbon monoxide would be put off by any of the houses that have fossil fuels, so gas or oil. Some of the all-electric houses, there should be no reason for the carbon monoxide to go off. We do have one house, Treetop. It's all electric, but their garage is attached to the house. So there are carbon monoxide detectors in that house because if someone left the van running in the garage, it would be detected. But if you also spray an aerosol, if you're cleaning, it could set it off. So if you're outside calling me, that might be the first thing I asked. Have you been doing any cleaning? Have you put any air fresheners out, which might help us determine what was going on. But the simplest thing, we had a house the other day, we noticed with a furnace inspection, however it was set up, there was a drain line in front of the exhaust pipe. Well, the drain pipe melted, caused the exhaust pipe to rust, and was letting carbon monoxide in. So luckily, we had it serviced and got it taken care of. We talked about getting out of the houses, push, pull, drag, especially if anyone's in a wheelchair or something like that. We're not going to use any of the manual or the electric equipment in the house to get up and out. A lot of the houses have their own technique, lift up the whole quilt, pull out, get out of the house. But if you ever have any situation where it changes in your house, let us know that so we can adapt to your house. And if anyone gets to the point where they're not waking up, make sure we know so we can add bed shakers. Some of the houses you work in might have bed shakers, but you might have to add them as someone sleeps a little deeper. Anything else you can think of, Deb?
I think, what about the kitchen fires, the stove? Could we go over a few more scenarios on that? I mean, we used to say baking soda.
And that's kind of interesting because Leon also brought out the first alerts that we were told by a licensor you couldn't use. But his is compliant, so I don't know if the ones we had aren't.
Okay.
So we're gonna look into that because Leon has gone into a house and used this to put out a kitchen fire.
And it was successful, Leon?
Very well. This is the same foam that we use in our trucks that we mix up and do. The reason I wasn't mentioning these in the beginning is because you guys weren't using these. Baking soda you can use. I'm not supposed to tell you that because it is not recommended by NFPA. It's an old remedy, and when we talk fire and we talk what NFPA, the National Fire Association, tells us to, I went into putting a lid over the fire, which you can do. The baking soda, they feel that, this is not my opinion, this is a written thing that I've read, and they've taught, when you reach out with the baking soda, you could literally take that grease, splash up, and then you end up with a 2nd or 3rd degree burn on your hand. So that's a reason why that's not taught no more. Baking soda is sorta like a powder that comes out of here. They're gonna tell you it's a bunch of different ingredients, which it really is, but in theory, it does the same thing.
What can you tell us about the new blankets?
The new blankets, I haven't went out and tried yet. We're looking at doing them on the car fires and stuff. I saw them at the shows. I really wanna try them. I don't know the price of them yet, but it's a new thing that's being pushed, and it's something that hangs that you just
We
pull
do
down
have one at home.
and you
know, my
just
wife-
lay it out. So, I'm sure that, you know, they're pushing them now. It's probably something I would, you know, if we're gonna do it, I would buy it, we could try it. And then, you know, if we wanna get into more of this, we do another drill, we get one, we try it. We light a real fire with all you guys here and we lay it out and try it. The car fire blankets, I saw them at the FDIC show, which is the International Chiefs Association show in Indianapolis. And the car fires, you throw the blanket over them, and we're knocking from about 2,000 degrees down to, you know, manageable 600 degrees. One thing I will say about the new fires, and I'm not sure, between the new facilities you have and the old facilities you have, remember this. Smoking inside, a cigarette butt in a couch, chair, or whatever, if you fall asleep and that ignites and it really gets going, that room in a matter of 2 minutes will be over 1,400 degrees. None of us are surviving that. So it's very, you know, your smoking policy is very important to do that outside. And just remember, if something does go awry and it is a big fire in the house, you gotta get out, close it. Because with all the new materials in your couches, excuse me, your bedding material and everything with your phones is all really toxic. So when you're evacuating, if there is a smoke haze, and I should have covered this on evacuations, my apologies. You don't just go and grab somebody and walk out standing up because your smoke's here. So that's gonna be the first thing that you're breathing. Unfortunately, you're gonna have to get down on your hands and knees or do the duck walk and literally stay low. Your smoke pattern will stay up high at first, and then it gradually starts coming down, down, down. So when you're going out, if you have a smoke hazard, you are crawling basically out of there or duck walking. Because if you stand up, you breathe that in 3-4 times, you're probably gonna pass out. And it'll be a short period later, if we don't get to you, we won't be seeing you no more.
And kind of with that being said, which I try to tell you in new employee orientation, if you're filling in at a house, Leon said earlier, know your location for 911 and all that information. If you're a fill-in and you're thinking, you know, the other staff knows all this, I'm just here for the night to help out. Well, think about the fact maybe that staff becomes incapacitated and now you are the lead staff and you have to know. So always have in the back of your mind that you want all the knowledge of the place that you're working. Familiarize yourself with the house. Know where the fire extinguishers are before you just take on a shift and assume that someone else is going to be able to help you out. Leon also touched on cars. This time of the year, what do we got falling from the trees? Come on, somebody.
Leaves,
Dylan, we got leaves, right?
smoking
A lot of
outside.
leaves. You're going out to festivals to look at the pretty leaves. Try not to park on top of them. The bottom side of the car gets very hot. It could cause a fire. So always kind of keep an eye out where you're parking. We've only had one vehicle fire since I've been here in 25 years. The staff did everything they should. Always assume the worst. If you assume the best, you could get in trouble. If you think the car might be on fire, pull off to the side of the road, get out, get your occupants out, and always get to the safest place on the side of the road. Just like with the house fire, you want to get out, you want to do the same thing with a vehicle fire.
Your catalytic converters are burning really hot, maybe 1,200 degrees. Don't hold me that number, but roughly there. And if you pull in and we're in town and somebody's blown all the leaves out and you park on top of them, you've got a great chance in about 15 minutes you'll look out and you'll see all kinds of black smoke.
Does anybody in the room have any questions? No? Anyone online have any questions?
They could chat the question?
While we're looking at that, Dean, the other thing is, talking about fill-in staff, each home has an exit map posted. Usually if there's a separate office, it'll be in the office. If not, it's in the living room or.
Usually by the fire extinguishers also.
Right, so when you're not just looking for that fire extinguisher, look for the map, so you know where all the bedrooms are, and you know the
And where your meeting
exits.
place is.
Right, and where the meeting place is.
You don't wanna be the one staff that's a fill-in and have no idea where you should be meeting.
Where you're going.
And, know how many people are in the house, which I would assume you would know anyway, but you wanna get out and
If
get all
you
that
come in on a
information
third
to the.
shift, if people are sleeping.
Right. Right, you don't know that Johnny went to his parents for the weekend, and you're assuming he's there, and if there's a fire and you get outside and you send the fire department in looking for someone that's not there, we just wanna make sure we all know. That's why when we do the, fire drills at the office, we have the sign-in sheet, we take the sign-in sheet with us to make sure there's no one left in the building. Same thing with the houses.
The other thing about your staging area, I don't know how close you have the staging areas, or your meeting area, I guess I should call it, my
Yeah.
mistake. That may have to change, depending upon what happens in that before we get there. In town, you have firehouses that they drive a mile or so, and I'm not making fun, that's just the way it is. When you start getting out here in the outskirts, by the time we get to the firehouse, we get in a truck and we get to your facility, you could be talking 20 minutes in a heartbeat. That 20 minutes is gonna seem the longest day of your life till we get there. So if there would be a real fire and it's getting bigger, don't stay in your normal area. Please take that staging area and move it back. And I mean, you may have to walk through the snow if it's bad weather, walk up to the main road. Everything could change, and you gotta keep that in the back of your mind. I get it's textbook, here it is, this is what we say. Here's our piece of paper. We know our exit, our staging area is 5 feet outside the house. Well, if that house is on fire, we better be 50 feet away from the house. So that'll change up.
Yeah, good point.
And that's all common sense unfortunately, it's gotta be the head of the facility that evening is gonna have to call that shot, because out here, there's the one place, Dean, that we work for, I believe it's in Ross or Kunkletown area, which is a drive, especially if I'm driving, we're coming from Snydersville, and then we're getting some trucks from here. My guys have about a 7-8 minute drive to the firehouse to get a truck. That doesn't account if it's bad weather, they're getting dressed, they're driving here and going. You might see us, might be 25 minutes out here. And that's a good time with all of us, because you gotta remember, our territories are huge. We're roughly 99 square miles we cover. So when you think we go from the head of Bartmansville all the way down to 512, which is a big strip of 33, we go almost out to the turkey farm, if you're familiar with that. And then beyond that, we cover for our neighbors.
I have a few questions from online. If time permits, should the electric be shut off to the house?
If that's not jeopardizing somebody going in the basement, I wouldn't advise that to them. Just because what happens if something happens to that person? Oh, they get excited, they go down the steps, they slip, they fall. Then what? Now we have a victim instead of just letting us do our job.
Where can they buy the First Alert spray?
Well, I'm gonna tell you to research First Alert before we tell anybody, because we're not using first,
Oh,
we're
maybe they
using
meant that
first
one.
aid. This is totally different than First Alert. This we can get online. I could find out more and email it to you guys. This product is NFPA approved. I can't answer about First Alert because I haven't really read their cans, to be honest. We've been using this stuff for about 4 years, 5 years maybe.
We'll have to check with our state regulations whether or not that
Yeah.
product would be allowable.
And if it's for personal use, we'll
Yeah,
look
right.
in and get you the information,
Oh, right.
but, don't start ordering on Amazon for the
Yeah, yeah, right.
houses. That is something we will provide from the office if it's okay from the state.
Another question is, can you go over the proper disposal / cleaning of the cigarette towers used at houses? There's no way of telling when the last butt was put in the tower, and somebody might dump that into a plastic bag or put in the kitchen garbage or the outside bin?
It would be very simple. As I suggest to all of our commercial accounts, at the end of the night, if you just take a pitcher of water, and I agree, it makes a little bit of a mess. When you dump the water down there, you know it's out.
Can you discuss smoke detectors and when to evacuate?
I would say as soon as you hear that smoke detector go off, I would evacuate. First of all, you have the responsibility as the caretaker of that house. If anything would go wrong and you didn't evacuate and it was a carbon monoxide alarm, excuse me, and everybody started to fall over like dominoes, CO is odorless, tasteless, and you could really end up, we've already took people out that have passed out, went on to a chamber down in the Lehigh Valley. I would not, there's plenty of false alarms, God, we know that. But you as a facility and with the people that you take care of and the responsibility you would have if the lawyer asked you why that person got hurt and why you weren't evacuating, I would never want that on my shoulders.
And just to reiterate with that, I have gotten some calls from houses and I've called and they said, oh, it's going off for no reason, so we didn't evacuate. You do have to evacuate no matter what. If the alarm goes off, you're going to get a call from the alarm company and you're going to get a call from me. Unfortunately, if it happens in the middle of the winter and it's cold, the best thing we can do is evacuate and get in the van and sit someplace warm, but you can't stay in the house until we clear it.
Does your alarms, maybe I shouldn't ask this question, but how do you know the difference, but they don't know the difference?
They don't know
between
the
smoke and
difference
CO?
because the alarm sounds
Because
like the
CO is
alarm.
more,
I mean, if they
more
looked
critical
if they
than-
looked at the panel,
okay.
if they had time for that. But my point is, if you hear an alarm, get out of the house. I'm gonna get the call and I'm gonna talk to you and let you know that the smoke alarm in bedroom 2 went off or the CO2 detector in the basement went off, and we'll go from there. And if you can, grab a cell phone or the house phone to bring with you so you can communicate once you're outside.
So this is a follow-up. So if in doubt, call 911 based on what staff may see, hear, or smell?
That's correct.
All right, this is from Ron. Touch on the following topics: LP or propane leaks, smell of gasoline in a vehicle, space heaters overloading outlets. When plastics and furniture burn, they give off cyanide gas.
That's why I said you're gonna go if there's a fire in any of that, and you don't know if it's gonna be cyanide this day or not. It's gotta be some kind of toxic gas. That's why you gotta, if it's going off, you crawl out low because that's gotta rise to the ceiling and drop. That needs to get evacuated and get them all out. And if you have your hands full, dial 911 once you get everybody evacuated. The human life is more important than the facility.
And I will have to say, we don't allow space heaters in any of the programs. We don't use fireplaces. We only have our heating systems. So
No open flames, no
no
candles.
candles.
So if there is a heating source issue, you're gonna realize that we're gonna have to relocate you. We can't bring in temporary heaters.
The other thing, going back to him, with the gasoline smell of a car, that's gonna get called in because you don't know if with these new cars, there's car fires every 30 seconds. That's a 911 call for a fuel spill at that point. I would consider it a fuel spill. Let your local fire company come. If it's gonna be a problem and they can't contain it, they're gonna turn that over to a record company that's gonna come and remove it, so there's no problem at the facility. I think there's one more question we're missing.
The smell of propane.
Propane would be
Gas.
the same thing. You evacuate, there's a couple reasons you could get propane smell. If you would be running out of gas, you get a weird smell and you think it's propane. It's non-toxic, non-harmful, but you don't know that, so you can't take that chance. You evacuate. If you have time and you're not nervous, shut the valve off to the tank. Notify your head of maintenance, which would be Dean, and at that point, he'd have to determine if it's a gas company or a plumbing issue, and then the professionals need to come in and find out where the leak is.
I think this is more of a statement than a question. Change batteries and smoke detectors when you change the clocks.
Yeah.
Are all ours hardwired?
They're hardwired, but they have batteries in them also. Some of them are wireless in some of the systems. A lot of the wireless systems have 10-year batteries, so any of the hardwired systems we take care of. If you have standalone, some of the houses, we have the standalone CO2 detectors. We also have gas detectors in the houses that might have natural gas or propane. So some of them do have battery backups. But yeah, twice a year they should be done, and we normally try to go with the time change.
Can you show the correct way and how to use the fire extinguisher?
One more time.
So basically, you're gonna pick it up first you're gonna look at it straight on. If there's a little gauge that's here, it's usually a yellow. It's followed with a little area that's green, and I teach it to be very easy. Green means go. If you stare at this gauge and it's in the red, there's no compression left to blow the extinguisher, the ABC out. It's lost its air through a little O-ring up here at the top. So that means it's useless. You might as well just throw it in the garbage. At that point, don't use it, it's not gonna work. When you go to a fire, if it's the computer and it's starting at the base, you're gonna hold the nozzle, you're gonna squeeze, and you're gonna swirp across the bottom, and then it's go up to the top. When you go across the base, you're gonna put the bottom of the fire out instead of coming up, and you're gonna stand about 3-4 feet away. If we come up and we blow right here, everything, even though we're putting the powder out, we're gonna blow the fire up. So it's very important to be back a few feet, sweep across the fire at the base, and then if it's up the walls, keep working your way up. Don't try to start at the top and come down. Because all you're doing is the heat will rise and take some of the chemical up in the air for you.
Another statement, when doing fire drills monthly, mark the fire extinguisher tags in the group homes?
Yeah, that's an agency policy. We have you monthly look at the gauge. The gauge is good, it's in the green. You sign the back of it and date it.
Stop, drop, and roll.
That's if you're on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you catch on fire, stop, drop, and roll.
Okay. Do you call 911 before or after trying to put out the fire?
Always before. Too much valuable time lost. People may argue that, but what are you gonna do when you start putting the fire out and it gets bigger and then you become more panic? So then as you're trying to give good directions to the 911 center, you are now, I tried to put the fire out and it's going. Make your call first, then get that. And people will disagree or agree. There's two ways to look at that. My thing is, you 911, then get the fire.
Do we need to bring anything with us in a fire, like a wallet or slippers?
One thing I would tell you, and this is a good point, I forgot to go over this. You don't go back in, and because you guys are the facilities you are, if there's a real fire, you're not going back in to grab medical cards, drugs, anything. You are the facilitator of that facility. Your job is I would call them your patients of the night. I don't know what other term to use there. Or your caretaker of however many people. Your most important job is to make sure they're outside. We can always get the wallet, take us a while down the road to get the new cards. We always know we can get their drugs back from a drugstore. I just don't think the human life is worth going back in to grab what little valuables that you guys have.
Should there be a meeting place for every home? And I guess not just our group homes.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Every home can't be the same. You can't, if this is our plan for, let's just say the high rise in there on, what am I trying to say, out West Main Street. If this is a pre-plan for there, we certainly can't take this pre-plan and go to Kunkletown. Or some of the other facilities up in, Tannersville, or what am I saying, Pocono Township. Every place is gonna be different. You need to know your facility. If you're a new facility going and you're temping in somebody's place that night, you know, everybody gets lax and everything's a routine. I would definitely walk in there that night, take a look at the plan, and God forbid something goes wrong, at least you spent 5 minutes and read that night, and you could be the big hero. You just saved 4 or 5 people because you spent 5 minutes. If you don't spend the time to learn that facility, and you lose 2 or 3 people, you know, you're gonna sit in the courtroom, and when you sit in that courtroom, it's not gonna be pretty.
And I think they may be asking if at their personal home, which I would also suggest yes.
Oh, yeah,
I always did with
absolutely.
my kids. You never know who might run out of a fire in a house, out of what door. Ours was always the camper in the side yard. That's where we would meet. But practice it so everyone knows. Don't just say it, and when a fire does happen, everyone doesn't remember. Practice it, talk about it.
If they have kids in the school districts, especially in our littler schools, that is taught to them in our fire prevention program there. Right out about the stop, drop, and roll, like somebody said. That's taught to the kids to take home to their parents. Having a meeting place, having an escape route, all that was done. If you have a 2-story house and what happens if the stairwell's on fire, you should have a rope ladder to get out of the 2nd floor or a chain ladder. You need a second access out. That's always good to plan that, especially at your own facilities. I'm not sure if you have double stories where that could be a problem or not, but, and you guys would have a tougher time because you're not gonna get most people to do that. At your personal house, you could have a rope ladder, a chain ladder hanging from the window and go down as a secondary escape, especially for your younger kids that are really athletic.
Well, another
Tie bed
statement of
sheets
government,
together.
now it says, you know, should every home practice monthly? I think we've already touched on that.
I mean, that's up to you, but yeah, you should practice at least now and then. Dinner time, mention on occasion, you know, where your meeting place is.
If they have an autistic son or daughter, I would definitely recommend that they practice more often. I'm not making fun of disability at all. All I'm saying is sometimes people aren't like all of us and can think really fast, or they get really scared and they don't know what to do. So yeah, practicing that and would be very, very wise idea. And having fire extinguishers at residential houses, which are your own, are really a great idea. I look at our shops, we do 2 different things. We'll do one like this, and then we'll do a foam extinguisher. And the foam extinguisher goes after you more of if your riding tractor catches fire and you want to cool it really quick and foam it, and you got a little gas spreading across, the foam will cover it. There's no really difference in how to use the foam extinguisher versus the ABC.
This might be a Deb question. It says, what would you tell our individuals if something happens to staff?
What would I tell?
Tell them
The
to dial
individuals
911.
if something happens to staff.
If something, in a fire, you mean?
Even just
I
a
guess,
regular
yeah.
sickness, I think they're after. I would teach your people in the facility to dial 911 to call for help.
Or maybe if that's what they're
That's what
looking
they
for,
mean,
if a
right,
staff is
Capable.
incapable of,
Incapacitated,
and
right.
we have had that scenario. We have had clients, and if they are capable, they too should call 911.
911,
And I think 90% of our clients are capable and should know if staff is, you might have just passed out for whatever reason. And
Blood sugar, anything.
yeah, and clients can call 911 as well.
You could have a heart attack even. Do you have the panic buttons? Well, maybe
We don't have any panic buttons at any of the agency, but all the numbers are listed
No,
by
I
the
meant on your
phones.
little keypads.
Yes.
it might be, well, that could be a double-edged sword.
Yeah, we could look at that, but some of them are in remote locations so
Okay.
that they're not messed with.
Will fire companies come out to see our homes before a fire so that they know our facilities?
I would say yes. I know that we would, if you guys invite us to anywhere, remember I cover Hamilton or Ross Township. So if you're asking me for another facility, that wouldn't be my jurisdiction, but I'm sure if that you reach out to other fire agencies, they always like to know where they're at. Excuse me. And then also, do you guys make it available where you send a sheet out to each individual fire company or where you have a house and let them know that you have 5 patients in this house, where this house is located, and that's something I know that we take in consideration, and that's put in the desk of our rescue truck, and it's also put in, excuse me again, it's also put into the EMS plan of the townships.
All of our homes that have the fire departments, as they would send to
The
any other
monitoring
home,
systems, yeah.
they send for the membership, so we always complete those and pay our fee. And we sometimes, we may put residents' names, but they do change.
Okay, here's what happens with all that stuff. So we'll take Blue Ridge Hook and Ladder for example. So as we send our letter drive out to you, it takes a long time for that to get back to us. What goes on with us, our bank, First Northern Bank here in Scioto, is very helpful. So all of the checks and all the slips get mailed to their post office box. They receive the money, the donation slips, the envelopes. They take them to the bank. The bank opens our checks. The bank deposits our checks. There's no fireman handling that end of the stuff. The old days it used to get done, and we were able to get your little note that Mr. Smith is in a wheelchair or whatever, okay? I remember those days. We used to sit here and do that. I got 45 years in this company, so I understand. This day and age, it doesn't do that. So what that does is you've now sent that information. It goes out to the post office, from the post office to the bank. And the bank gathers up all the nice little slips. Then they get put into an envelope. And because we do basically a mailing through a company that we hire, all those slips have to go back to that company. That company goes through and sees who donated to us. Then they go into the second mailing. The second mailing comes back, we go through the same process. Believe it or not, it goes the third time. So what happens is, now after we do the 3 mailings, and we start this in fire prevention, or maybe a tad bit before fire prevention, which is August, I finally probably look at this report January or February. So you see the time lapse. It's huge. And unfortunately, when you run, and it's not just this company, it's every company, because we run mutual aid from 6 in the morning to 6 at night. Some of the areas we do 24-hour because we just don't have enough volunteers. So for us to do that letter drive, we just don't have the manpower, or the firefighters, I should say, this day and age, to do all that. So we rely on other people. So it's not that we don't care. It's just the time lapse for all this to go back, get printed out. So when we go and sit down, that we can see, okay, then send everybody thank you letters. It's about a 4-month process.
So basically, if we take our floor plan, say there's normally 7 people in this house.
Yep.
Send that to you guys.
Yep.
Or whatever.
To
That's a good idea.
whichever fire company. We could get you a list of that. I would have that generated, I probably have that in my email. If not, I could get Control Center to do that, and you could get each fire chief's email. And as you sat there this day and age, instead of mailing, you just hit email and go
Send
on.
it out to 'em. Okay.
So, and if you don't have everybody, if you just tell me which townships you have, and then we could get you the email to those particular fire chiefs to help you out.
Great.
Again, this is more of a statement. When entering a house, if you do smell LP or propane, don't turn anything on. Leave and call
No light
911.
switches, no nothing.
Can you talk about overloading outlets and the correct gauge extension cords? I know our safety committee checks for things like that.
I mean, safety does come around to all the houses. You shouldn't be using extension cords unless they're approved by us, and overloading any of the outlets. You know, one power strip is okay, but that power strip shouldn't have a power strip plugged into a power strip. So if you do ever have any questions with that, just ask facilities and we'll come out and help you make sure everything's safe.
Another statement, this is from Beth. Our goal is to save every person in emergency, so 911 should always be our first call for any emergency.
It's exactly what we pretty much hit right before, you know. First of all, get everybody out, then do 911.
You good?
That's it.
All right.
Any questions here?
No, you all good? All right. Thank you,
Well,
guys.
while you have everybody up there, you know, we could set this up to where, you know, depending upon where everybody is, I mean, locally, we could do fire extinguisher training at another date or whatever you guys want, where we could light some fires and teach everybody what we're talking about, pulling the thing. We could take basically like a 55-gallon drum, we put a little diesel fuel in with a little gas, we would light that, and then we would allow the person to spray it. Or, I'll tell you what else we do have through the county level is a mock system that is a train-to-trainer that you could take it out and set it up, and basically it's all LED. So that's another option we have.
Okay.
I always like real fire because it really teaches you.
Yeah.
Mock stuff it's okay, but.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.